Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. The webinar today is about guidance in completing your application. It was actually entitled Applying for Funding Tips and Tricks, and I am going to begin right now. So my name is Jewel Mzer. I'm a farm production extension specialist with the Agri Ecosystems and Land branch of Manitoba Agriculture. I grew up on a farm near Rossburn, Manitoba, and then, pardon me, and then I attended the University of Manitoba, where I did 2 degrees, one in agri-environment, the other one in resource management. I farmed with my husband for several years, and I have been working with Manitoba Agriculture for the better part of 20 years with the ag policy frameworks, BMPs, and environmental farm plans. So today's webinar, I'd just like to give you an overview. We're going to be talking about completing applications for the recently announced Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba program. I'm going to show you how to navigate the government website. We're going to go through completing the applicant information form and then also completing the application worksheet. I'll talk a little bit about what we are looking for in applications when we rate and rank them and the criteria by which we do so. And then I will go over the overall process, so what you can expect from the process as a whole, starting from when you apply until when you get paid if you're approved. And you should see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen on the toolbar, I believe, and you can type your questions into there. I have Erin Dieterle with me today, and she'll be monitoring that. And if we have time, I can answer some of those questions after all the content has been presented, but I do expect that I will take the better part of the hour we have today. Rest assured, you will receive an email after this webinar with the link to the recording of the session. We are recording this session and we'll be posting it to our website. So don't worry if you miss something or if my audio cuts out a little bit. And the slide deck will also be sent to you for reference after the webinar. So as you see from my previous slide here, I've had an exciting few days. I was at Ag Days and met the minister, Ron Kostitian, and then last night I was lucky enough to attend the Jets Gala where I met Wab Kinew. So if I make any mistakes today, I hope you're gracious enough with me. So we're going to start by just taking a little overview of the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. You probably already are aware that we've had ag frameworks like this for about 20 years now. Each one is 5 years in length. The sustainable cap is effective from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2028. So it's a 5-year agreement with $221 million available to producers. We are currently in our 2nd year of the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership as of April 1st of this year. So for the 2024 field year, we have a focused offering of 10 BMPs under 3 program streams. Our year 2 intake is timed with the field season in mind this year, and expenses prior to April 21st, 2024 cannot be claimed for projects in the 2024 field year. Now, if you refer to the program guide, there's going to be a different date in there, and it's going to say expenses prior to April 1st, 2023 are ineligible. And that is because in certain cases, some expenses that were incurred between April 1st, 2023 to April 1st, 2024 may be considered, but that's pending a lot of different areas where you need to be, first of all, approved for the project, and then there could be a special consideration. So that's a little bit muddy, but I would just encourage you all to apply for this field season and try not to incur any expenses prior to April 1st, 2024, until you know that you have been approved and you've signed your agreement. So navigating the website, if you Google Manitoba agriculture, one of the first things that pops up is going to be this site. This is our landing page. And to find the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, you will see it right at the top of the page. And so you can click on that box there. And you will also see it on a sidebar menu, and it's towards the bottom, and you can click on it there, and that will take you to the SCAP site. When you get to the SCAP site, and the website is noted here at the very top, this is what it's going to look like. And just a little bit further down the page, you will see this. And so we have several different priority areas. There's 6 of them. And the very first one noted there, number 1, is climate change and environment. And this is where the producer programs are. This is where you will want to click on that little plus sign, and it will open up a new menu. Or a new landing page, I suppose. So this is the landing page for climate change and environment. And then there's different programs listed here under that area. So we have Resilient Agriculture Landscape Program. Watershed Resilience is the first one there. That is the program that funds the watershed districts. So that is not applicable for you producers unless you go through your watershed district. The second program there is RALP, Carbon Sequestration and Grassland Resilience. That is open to producers right now. And then the one we're going to be looking at today as an example is Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba. And that program opened for application intake on January 16th at Ag Days, it was announced. So under Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba, we are providing funding to farmers and land management managers to implement cost-shared beneficial management practices, or BMPs, that increase the environmental and economic sustainability of agriculture operations in Manitoba. The priority areas that the province is focused on this year are climate change adaptation and mitigation, and then the usual air, water, soil, and biodiversity. So the quality of those different air, water, and soil. For Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba, eligible applicants are primary producers, commercial manure applicators, and custom pesticide operators. There are 3 funding streams under the SAM program: cropland management, manure and livestock management, and water management. And we are going to use crop management as our example today. So when you click on any one of those three funding streams under SAM, at the bottom of the page, you'll see additional information and documents. And this is what it looks like. So you'll see 4 green bars there. And the first one is a link to a document that is the terms and conditions of the program. So a lot of legalese, but something you should still read. The second link is the program guide, which is going to give you all the information on cropland management. So there's a separate program guide for each of the different funding streams. There's one for crop management, which lists all the BMPs and all the details. There is one for manure and livestock management, and there's also one for water management. So whatever BMPs you're thinking of applying to, make sure you read that program guide. Then we have the applicant information form and the application worksheet. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about those. So when you're applying to SAM, Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba, your application will be in 2 parts. So the first thing to realize is that the applicant information form is just basic information about your farm, and it only has to be completed once over the whole agreement. So if you applied under SAM last year and you completed an applicant information form, you will not need to do so again. If you've never applied for any of the programming under SCAP, then you will need to complete that applicant information form. The application worksheet is your actual BMP application, and I'll go through each of these forms in detail. So the applicant information form we'll look at first. And what you need to do is just click the link that's on the right-hand side of that bar, and it will bring up the form. Now, when you're completing any of these forms, whether it's the applicant information form or the application worksheet, it's very important that you have the most up-to-date version of Adobe on your computer. Adobe is free. You can Google search it and download it to your computer. You shouldn't have any problem doing that, but of course it's best to do this before you start filling out any documents. And I've just included a picture there that shows I did kind of a dummy application just for this webinar, for the purposes of this webinar. And when I was in the applicant information form, you can see that I'm using my Adobe on my computer. So the applicant information form, it's very clear, the instructions, and at the very top of the application form, it notes that if it's your first time applying, you have to submit the worksheet. If you've previously applied, you do not need to resend this applicant information form. This is what the applicant information form looks like. The only caution to this form is that if you're entering either your social insurance number or your business number, you do have to do it in this particular convention where you enter 3 numbers, a dash, the next 3 numbers, a dash, and then your final 3 numbers. So those dashes have to be included. You can't just type 9 digits in there alone. It won't accept it. And you could keep trying to do that like I did, and it says that it's not in the proper format. So make sure you're using the dash conventions for entering those numbers. This next part of the applicant information form is just for information, really. It will not affect your assessment of your application in any way. If you fill out either the Indigenous people section, or if you decide to check off one of the boxes. You can also decline to identify. And of course, it states right on there, your response is for information purposes only. I guess I should just quickly mention, you need to indicate the legal name of your business and the percentage ownership, whether it's 50% or 100%. And then there's a drop-down menu where you should identify whether you're a government employee, a current or former elected official, or neither. So you would just click the box on the very right-hand side to select one of those. The last part of the form is a privacy notice and declaration. You have to check all the boxes there before you enter the date that you completed the application form. And again, use the convention that's given as an example here, a 4-digit year, a dash, 2 digits for the month, a dash, and then 2 digits for the day. Then you're going to click save. And this might be a little bit tricky. You might want to come back to the recording on this webinar if you don't completely understand it, but you want to save it to your computer. And so where that save button is, you want to right click, and then you can choose to save your applicant information form anywhere on your computer, but somewhere where it's readily accessible and you can find it easily. So the best place I would suggest is to your desktop. So then you just want to go save to desktop. And then this little pop-up comes up and you'll want to click save again. And then this is what it would look like for your applicant information form that's saved to your desktop. You'll see a little PDF and then the beginning of the file name. If it doesn't open when you double click on save, you might need to right click it and then choose open with. So not to be too confusing, first you want to try and double click and save it to your desktop. If it doesn't work, then you want to go right click and a little menu will open up and you'll want to save it. Once you've entered all the information in the applicant information form, which will be now on your desktop, you want to click submit. If you have missed filling out one part of the application form, it will not allow you to submit, and you will have to scroll back up to fill that in and try and submit again. There might be more than one box, but there will be a red bordered box if you haven't completed some part of the form. Now, if you're having trouble with all of this, the program administrator and the phone number, and I'll have that number and email up again later in the prep. Was a slide that shouldn't be there. So your application worksheets, there will be one applicant information form for all funding streams if you haven't completed it before, and also one application worksheet for each funding stream. So for example, once you open the cropland management, you'll go to the bottom of the screen and complete the application worksheet there. So back to what the website looks like on climate change and environment under cropland management. And currently the program is open. And funding February 13th. So under cropland management, here's the BMP summary. So there's 4 different BMPs under cropland management. You would need to complete an application worksheet for each and every one that you're applying for. Today we'll just be applying for one, and it's going to be low disturbance placement of seed and fertilizer. So the details are given here on the website, the cost share ratio and the funding cap for each of the BMPs. Projects are to be 1 year in length. So starting April 1st, 2024 and completed by March 31st, 2025. So just keep in mind that this basic information about the funding streams, the BMPs, are all on the website. If you want the more detailed information, you must to read the program guide. So just back to the first bar at the bottom there, terms and conditions. You should read this. I mean, it's a lot of heavy reading, I would say, detail about the program itself, but give it a good read so that you're aware of what your responsibilities are and what the program's responsibilities are to you. The second green bar there at the bottom is the program guide. Please read this before you apply. It goes over a variety of different areas. The one I just have up here as an example is the cost share funding. So it talks about eligible expenses and it goes into detail, also ineligible expenses. It's all very important information for you to know, and you should know before you actually start your application. Now I'm going to go in depth into the application worksheet, which is your BMP application. So there's one worksheet for all the BMPs under cropland management. So this is the cropland management application worksheet. When you're entering your legal business name, be sure that you're using the same name as on your environmental farm plan. If you haven't begun your environmental farm plan yet, keep in mind what your legal name is that you're entering here in the application and make sure that it matches when you do your EFP. For information, please include the contact information for the person who actually wrote the application. Often we need to go back to the applicant with questions, and that is the person we're going to contact. So make sure that whoever you list here will be able to answer any questions. The next part of the application has changed for this year as opposed to last year. You will choose one of the BMPs under cropland management, so one of these 4. And all you have to do is click the little circle, and that indicates you've chosen that particular BMP. Last year, we had a project summary that you needed to actually type out. This will be automatically generated here when you choose the BMP, and it is straight from the guidebook. So all you need to do is one click. The next part is talking about your environmental farm plan. And the thing to note here is you need to choose yes or no. That has no implication on the rating or ranking of your application. You can apply for any of the BMPs before you have a valid statement of completion from your environmental farm plan. When you will need to present that proof of your statement of completion is at the claims stage. So that is after your project is approved, completed, and you're submitting your claim, then you need a valid statement of completion. And of course, your environmental farm plan can be completed online. Just go to our website and you can take a look at what that all involves. But you can start and stop your environmental farm plan at any time. It automatically saves your information, so you can go back to it and finish it whenever it's convenient for you. The next part of the application worksheet is talking about commodity and industry impact. And what it asks is for you to identify all commodities and industries that the project will impact. So I'll just remind you that the BMP we are using as an example today is 1200 low disturbance placement of seed and fertilizer. Now I've included a sample of an answer to each of the questions in the application worksheet so that you have a good idea what we're actually looking for. So in this case, the applicant indicated this will be a primary grain production project, and the commodities that we grow are wheat, canola, soybeans, and corn. So it doesn't have to be a wordy answer. One sentence is fine, but make sure that the question is completely answered. Then you need to indicate the location of the project. And again, there's drop-down menus here for you to choose from. Next, the project location. Again, you will indicate the legal land description, and then you'll get to choose from a drop-down menu the municipality, the watershed district, and the location description. And there's an example given right for you there on the application worksheet. So we are applying for 1200. And the next question that you need to answer is the project description. So what we're looking for here is descriptiveness and clarity. A big portion of your answer should demonstrate environmental change. And one thing to keep in mind when you're answering any of these open-ended questions is your answer meaningful to someone who knows nothing about your farm? Because in essence, we as reviewers will not have any idea who you are, what your landscape looks like, or what you're planning in your head for your project. So here's an example of a good answer to describing the proposed project. In order to move away from our current practice of two-pass high disturbance seeding, we'd like to purchase a new John Deere seeding system. This would be comprised of the no-till air drill, an air cart to be used on our farm. Along with the new seeding equipment, we will also be switching from using liquid fertilizer over to granular. The switch will mean that replacing our current liquid storage over to dry fertilizer will be required. So there's a few very concise sentences there that show what they're planning to do step by step, where it's going to occur, and what components they need to complete the project. This is very important. We did have some issues with this last year. So for any open-ended questions on the application where you must enter text, make sure that you're typing your answer directly into the text box within the application. Please do not use other programs such as Word and then copy and paste into the text box. If you must use another program and are copying and pasting, please ensure that once you've pasted, your entry, you hit the return button. Otherwise, when the application is received, we may not see all the information that you're actually entering into that box when you cut and paste. So the best way is to type your answer right into the text box. If you need to edit it or adjust it after, you can do so without any problem. The next portion of the application is about change in farming practices and environmental benefits. So this is a really key part of the application. We're looking for thoroughness and an answer to each question on the left. So in the green box, it indicates exactly what kind of questions that we want answered, and you should go through those one by one and make sure that you've got an appropriate answer to each of the questions. So you want to compare your current management system to what your management practices will be once your project has been completed. So we want kind of a before look and an after look at what you're planning to do, what you did last year compared to what you're planning to do this year. What are you doing now? That should be clear, and what you'll be doing afterward. And then changes can occur either by adding a new practice to your existing operation or by increasing the use of an existing practice. So that's important too. We need to know what your practice is currently, whether you're actually implementing something new or increasing the use of something you're already doing. And then finally, you need to outline the environmental benefits of your project. So I'm not going to read this complete answer here out. Again, you can go back to this recording if you want to take a look at it more clearly. And this is basically exactly what we're looking for you to answer this question. The next portion of the application talks about prior funding. So this is something that you need to indicate if you did receive any funding prior. So the program name and the year, the BMP or the project description, and the amount received, you must declare. And then there's some instructions about attachments and supplementary documents. So if you do want to include a diagram or if it's required, and then also any projects that include permanent changes, installations, construction and earthworks, for example, you must include a diagram or an aerial photograph. And the diagram must show these three things: the direction of overland flow or runoff. You must identify the location of any wells, surface water bodies, or water courses, and any additional sources of water. And you also must show the location of all proposed project components. So the reviewing team will be looking for a diagram or an aerial photograph attached to your application. And they will be looking for these three items to be identified on that diagram or photograph. So ensure that you're reading the application very thoroughly and including everything that's being asked for. I can't stress that enough. Incomplete applications are not considered or considered poor. There's also an additional section in the applications this year called project metrics. So you need to complete the appropriate BMP project metrics table to match your selection of BMP. And this information is required for the application assessment process. So following this, you'll see metrics tables for the 4 different BMPs under cropland management. So BMP 1100, reduced tillage intensity, BMP 1200 low disturbance placement of seed and fertilizer, 1400 reduced pesticide use, and 1600 perennial cover for sensitive lands. So the example we're using today is 1200. And so you would only need to fill out the metrics table for BMP 1200. If you do want to apply for another BMP in cropland management, you need to complete a separate application form. The next section is your timeline and budget. So estimated start date, end date, and then duration in months that you anticipate. And then there's quite a detailed pre-description to the budget. Make sure you read each and every one of these points and ensure that your budget reflects all of those points. So here's just an example of budget for BMP 1200 under cropland management. For your expense type, there'll be a drop-down menu and you need to select one. Again, a drop-down menu under the practice code. So here is where you need to be sure that you understand the different practice codes under each BMP. And you can find that in the program guide. And then you need to describe each, in this case, capital asset and equipment under the description column, and finally the amount, which should not include GST. The final part of the application is the privacy notice and declaration. Again, the boxes all need to be checked off. The date in the date convention needs to be entered here. And then you want to save the form onto your desktop or elsewhere, but somewhere where you can readily locate it. And then finally submit. So how are the applications being rated and ranked? All the details on this is in the program guide, but I'll just go over a little bit of the criteria here today. We basically look at 3 different areas when we receive an application, or I guess the review team does. The first area is what we refer to as the eBay. eBay stands for Environmental Benefit Assessment Index, and this is a system that is used to determine the level to which a project addresses environmental risk. So the index automatically generates a rating for the environmental benefits that any specific activity or BMP would provide. And the criteria under the eBay include the following: climate change, so mitigation of greenhouse gases and adaptive measures to climate change. Water quality, the potential to improve water quality by reducing the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, pesticides and pathogens that enter waterways. Water quantity, so that indicates the potential to address the storage, conservation, and efficient use of water. Soil quality and fertility, the potential to improve soil quality, reduce erosion, and maintain or increase crop productivity. And finally, biodiversity and natural habitat. So the potential for a project to improve biodiversity and wildlife habitat through environmental farming practices. The second section that the review team looks at is the provincial program priorities. And this is also covered in the program guide. So I'm not even going to let you know what those are. I want you to look them up in the program guide and read it in full. And then this third section that the review team looks at is project planning. So how has the project been planned? Is there enough detail? Is it concise? Is it realistic? is every part of the application completed? A value is assigned to each of those areas. So the eBay, which is automatically generated based on the priorities that I just went over, the climate change, etc., the provincial program priorities, and then the project planning. So how you complete your application. And a final value is then found based on the assessment of those three areas. And then that value is compared to value of other applications within the project category. So I can't stress this enough. We have a pot of money that we want to spend on good completed projects. We would love to fund everyone, but as civil servants, we do need to have a sound scientific criteria to assess things. And so we look at, is the project practical, achievable within the time frame? Does the project clearly show environmental benefit? That's what we're after. And is the budget detailed and realistic? Are your values in your budget too low or too high? These are all things that we consider when the project team is rating and ranking the applications. And this might seem common sense, but have you read every part of the application and answered every question that has been presented? And again, I'm referring to the title of the parts of the application in the green box, where there's additional questions that follow. Have you read through all those and have you answered every one of those questions that have been posed? Have you read the applicable program guide? So in the program guide, there will be each of the BMPs under that particular program guide. So cropland management will have the 4 BMPs all described there individually. If you're only applying for one BMP, all you need to do is read the section on that one BMP. But all the information is there for you. And then finally, is the application completed fully? Have you not answered any one part of the application? That could be grounds for throwing the application out completely. It has to be completed in full. And then for those open-ended questions, have you answered any long-ended questions with only 1 or 2 sentences? We saw at the beginning of the webinar where the very first question was answered in 1 sentence, but it did complete the question. Everything was described in there sufficiently. But when we're asking for detail on your operation and how your practices will be changing, definitely expecting more than 1 or 2 sentences on that. And again, something to keep in mind is if someone who knows nothing about you and your operation were reading your application, would they have a clear picture of what you are doing in your project and why? Once you've completed your application, ask yourself this question and try and look at your application objectively and go back and I was going to say embellish, but that's the wrong word. Go back and add anything that you think might be missing for someone that would not know anything about you and your farm. I'm just going to quickly go over the overall process and how it works. So a lot of this is in the background. You won't realize what's happening with your application, but this is just a way to explain the process and the steps that we take in full. So once your application is submitted, some basic information about your application is taken in, and then the applications go to review. So that's where we're rating, ranking, and looking at the different components the eBay for the particular BMP, the provincial priorities, and overall how well you've completed your application in terms of project planning. Once all the applications have been reviewed, the applications will be sent up for decision. And then the applicant is notified of the decision, whether you will be approved for the upcoming project for the upcoming field year or not. After that, you'll be sent a program package. You'll need to sign the contract or agreement that is sent to you and send it back. A lot of this can be done electronically, but that is very important. If those documents aren't signed, then the rest of the process is null and void. The applicant then initiates the project, completes the project, and prepares and submits the claim for the project. So you will receive in your project package, where there's the contract and agreement, you will receive submission packages as well. And these are the invoices and proof of payment. And just to give you an idea of the timeline here, you would be completing this probably in the winter of 2024, 2025, after your project is completed, hopefully during the field year. Then your claim is reviewed, and just keep in mind that our year end, fiscal year end is March 31st, 2025. So you will be paid prior to that date, March 31st, 2025, or shortly after. So currently applications are being accepted for 2 programs under the climate change and environment area, the Resilient Agriculture Landscape Program. This is not the program we were talking about today, but it involves 2 different areas, agroforestry and carbon sequestration and grassland resilience. It has been open for some time now, and it will close on January 22nd, 2024. So that's coming up quickly, but you do still have some time to apply for the RALP program. And then the other program that's open right now is Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba. That's what we've been talking about today, and in particular the cropland management section. And the other 2 areas that Sustainable Agriculture Manitoba covers is the manure and livestock management and the water management. And so again, this was announced at Ag Days, so it was open from January 16th and will continue to receive applications until 11:59 p.m. on February 13th, 2024. If you go to our website, all these deadlines are very clearly stated, and don't forget to take a good read on the program guide. So that concludes the webinar for today. I thank you for attending and for your attention. And if you have any questions, here's where you can contact program administration. The email is agriculture@gov.mb.ca, and the toll-free phone number is 1-800-811-4411. So I'll just repeat that again if you're jotting it down. For the program administration, the email is agriculture@gov.mb.ca, and the toll-free phone number is 1-800-811-4411. I've also included my personal information, not personal, but work. Work number is 204-821-6153. And more specifically, I usually field calls on the environmental farm plan, but can also answer BMP questions. And my email is just my first and last names separated by a dot. So jewel.mazur@gov.mb.ca. And once again, if you've missed anything in this webinar, we can certainly, we will supply you with the recording afterwards or the link to the recording, and it will also be posted on our website so you can refer back to it and take it in at your own pace. And if you just go to Manitoba Agriculture, our website has all the information and links to any further information you may be requiring right on our website. So with that, I think we still have about 10 minutes. I can answer some of the questions that you may have submitted into the Q&A.
Okay, Jewel, there's a couple that are in there.
Okay.
So the first one, with previous programs from watersheds, there was an overall cap on all funding, even if you had more than one application or project. Is that the case for this? And do previous funding amounts go toward that cap?
Okay, so there is no cap on SCAP. That doesn't sound good. But overall, the whole program, Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership, that has a length of 5 years, there is no overall program cap. There was a cap to our previous ag framework, which was the Canadian Agriculture Partnership, or CAP. There was a program cap for that framework, which ran prior to 2023, but this one does not have an overall program cap.
Okay, and then the other question, all claim payout is April 2025. Can that be moved up?
The claim
payout?
No, generally when program administration, they review all the claims at the very tail end of the year. So you have 12 months to complete your project and submit your claim. So you can certainly submit your claim documents as soon as your project has been completed, but you may not be paid out any sooner.
Okay, and then one that I answered, just typed answered that came in earlier, was in regards to the postal code, if there was a special way to type that out. And I just did reply that there has to be a space between
the first
three and then the last three.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. And certainly if you're working in the application and you're not sure about something, do call that 1-800 number and they can help you out.
I don't see any other questions coming in.
Okay. If anybody does have any questions that you weren't comfortable typing into the Q&A, or if questions arise after the webinar, please give me a call or send me an email, and I'd be happy to help you out as soon as I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jewel.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. Have a great day.